Oh, no, see, oh, for goodness sake.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll hear a bit more from Paul Monaghan later in the show. But first, let's talk about Miami, a sprint weekend in South Florida. And sprint weekends usually mean one thing: very few upgrades on the cars. So, of course, the one thing we're going to be talking about this weekend and here on Tech Talk is all of the upgrades on the cars. And some of those upgrades, some of those differences on the cars are more obvious than others. I am talking, of course, of the blue and white Ferrari colour scheme, which has been introduced as a special one-off for this weekend. Not that weekend. They've been at it again. Actually, this 1964 North American Racing Team Ferrari livery, I kind of hoped Ferrari would do that this weekend. They haven't gone the whole hog. They've just done the engine cover in blue and white and the rear wing. And normally we wouldn't talk about that sort of stuff here on Tech Talk because it's a bit more marketing than technology. However, the covering that Ferrari has used to change their livery for this weekend is a little bit more interesting than we would have normally expected. The team claim it is a latex-based coating that's 14% lighter than the coating they'd normally use for a special one-off livery. And that 14%, it might not sound very much. It's on the engine cover. It's probably just worth a few grams. But a few grams weight saved in Formula One can make a big difference when you're thinking about weight distribution and your total weight of the car. Now, Ferrari aren't one of those teams we think are on the weight limit, but they are looking to save those little tiny bits of information, those little tiny bits of weight, just a few grams here and there. It does all make a difference. And that new sponsor coating is a latex-based coating with no PVC, and apparently it's fully recyclable as well. So meeting a few sustainability gains there for Ferrari, which Formula One and the FIA absolutely love. It's all important stuff, of course. But for me, that coating, you might think, well, it's just a bit of coating. You could paint it, you could leave it there, it doesn't matter. But to actually put some sort of latex coating on the engine cover, you've got to think what's underneath that engine cover. You've got hugely hot components. It's a really hostile environment. How often have we seen cars coming into the pits at the end of a qualifying session, let alone a race, with scorch marks on the bodywork? In fact, cars bursting into flames altogether. Yet this coating doesn't seem to be suffering from that. So Ferrari's either got some very clever gold coating on the inside of the engine cover, or this new coating that they're using from their sponsor is working really, really well. But that's not the only new arrival in Formula One. Down at Red Bull, they've all got very excited about something else new. And I'm not talking about Max Verstappen's new baby. I'm talking about the new floor on the team's car, which has been introduced this weekend. Quite a bold call, considering that this is a sprint weekend and getting the most out of floors is quite difficult. But with all of those new arrivals going on at Red Bull, I thought before we go and have a closer look at the floor, it's worth trying to listen to what Paul Monaghan has to say about the new floor when being questioned by Mike Seymour down in the pit lane earlier. Hopefully, we'll hear him.
Can we start with the changes to the car for this weekend? We've seen some changes to the floor in particular. So what's been going on there?
Well, we've managed to move the forward fences just a little bit, which is a CFD-based optimization proved out in the tunnel. It's a small improvement. We can do it for this race, so we've gone ahead and done that. Floor edge wing, again, that's an optimization. A few more, how thoughtful, a few more grams of load or kilos of load, and yeah, off we go. We'll see how we get on.
So just how different is this specification, and will both drivers be using it this weekend?
Well, I tell you what, I'll leave you to do the visual differences because it's actually quite tough. It's subtle, but the load's there, so we'll take it. But yeah, in terms of the visual difference, not huge.
And there's the sprint element this weekend, of course. So how much of a challenge does
well, we get 1 hour, don't we? So we better have our act together in that 1 hour, and then we're into sprint qualifying. Be competitive, get on with it. Sprint race, dust ourselves down, sort out, change what we can. Weather, by the sounds of it, could be a bit temperamental from Saturday, Sunday. So, yeah, it's up to us to get ourselves through the weekend. I say the 1 hour will be potentially a bit tougher for us, but so be it. That's how the cookie crumbles. Let's get on with it.
We've seen some teams struggle when introducing floor changes in the past. Why do you think that is the case under this kind of regulations?
Only because if it doesn't behave as you would expect, then you can get yourself into a bit of trouble because you don't know what your air balance is, you know what the load is it behaving, what's wrong. Clearly we're quite confident, and we're prepared to roll the dice and do it. So knowing the people involved, you'll be fine.
Sure. And just generally, where are you in terms of understanding this RB21?
In terms of understanding it, good. We've made a lot of progress with this one since its debut. Obviously Japan was a bit of a highlight, Bahrain was a bit of a low point, but in terms of actually grasping and understanding it, yeah, we've dusted ourselves down for Jeddah. We were a lot better in relative terms, could have won it. Understanding, yeah, good. Improving it, small steps. It's not going to be a sort of magic moment, but incrementally it will get better and better and better, and then we'll see if we do it faster than our opposition.
Well, let's take a closer look at that floor now. I've got the old floor on the screen here, but before we get into it, it's worth noting that Paul Monaghan said that the differences were visually very subtle, but that means the effect of those changes is not necessarily so subtle. And I think that's more about getting the floor working in a different range of ride heights and a different range of setups, widening out that setup window and fighting that potential correlation issue we heard about earlier in the season. If you want to learn a little bit more about that and a different opinion about that, jump over to F1 TV and have a listen to what one of the most respected aerodynamicists in the sport, Willem Tucht, had to say about that specifically on Tech Talk in depth. So that's worth having a listen to. But for now, let's have a look at the floor, because I think one of the key differences on the floor can be found here at the rear of what I call the viaduct section. And this section here, just down here, you can see it just where the little bridge section rejoins the trailing edge of the floor along there. I think that's where one of those changes is. Now, if you look at the new specification floor introduced today, car's the other way round, unfortunately, so we just have to look in a slightly different way at those two extremities of the floor edge wings. But the areas I'm seeing is where it blends in with the edge of the floor. So here at the front, and then here along at the rear, it's not quite as pronounced drop-off, I think. I think they've resculpted it ever so subtly. But I think there's a lot more to learn looking at this floor, and it's very difficult when the car's whizzing around the track at the best part of 200 miles an hour. You can't get too close to it, but some of the photos that are going to come out of this weekend, I'm sure, will be a bit more revealing. And that's what everybody up and down the pit lane is going to be taking a close look at, because if this new floor works for Red Bull, it could transform the performances of both Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda throughout the rest of the season. It will be interesting to find out if Tsunoda has that new floor. We know that Verstappen definitely does, because the FIA regulations state that the new parts must be on the car on display. As we've already seen, Max Verstappen's car was on display. Speaking of new parts though, another team in the pit lane with some new bits and bobs on the car were Aston Martin. Now, it's fair to say the famous British team has been struggling a little bit this season. They've introduced a new rear wing to the car and a new front wing. But before I get into those, once again, Mike Seymour is putting the questions to the team, and in this case, Mike Krack.
You know, Miami is a circuit where you need a little bit of different downforce and drag configurations. We have two extremely long straights that are connected to one side by a high speed and one side by some low speed sections. So normally the teams bring here a different package in terms of wings, and in our case it's the same. Mainly this is the rear wing, and then obviously you have to balance it, so you have to bring a little bit smaller front flap.
And can you detail the beam wing as well? What's changed there?
Well, basically, if you look at the car, you have, or if you look at the cars in general, there is always a variation between twin element wings or single element. And here is about drag reduction. So normally you go into a single element. It's a little bit bigger than a standard single element. And I think, you know, every team tries to find the best compromise here. You have the DRS to consider. But all in all, I think, you know, you try to optimize your beam wing and upper rear wing around the drag downforce package.
It looks like a small part, but how much performance can you gain in that area, and why do we see so many teams tweaking that so much?
Well, you have seen over the last, how long is it now, 18 months, there is a lot of controversy around rear wings. Everybody speaks about mini DRS or wing deflections, be it front, being rear. It is an area where every team is working intensively, you know, to basically, you know, the compromises are always the same. You want more downforce and you want not the drag that comes with it. So that's where everybody is working to. And it's the same for us. The FIA is trying to clamp down most of it all the time, and there will be a further one for Barcelona on the front wings. So let's see if something in the order is changing. If it does, we will see that some teams might have exploded more than others.
It's a sprint weekend, of course, so how much does that add to the challenge in terms of drawing conclusions from new parts and understanding exactly where you are before jumping into sprint qualifying?
Yeah, you're right. Sprint is stress for the whole team. You know, we had a 2-week break. You come here, you have new parts. You know, you have new analysis that you want to try new things, and you have only 1 hour. Which, if you have a red flag or a yellow flag, you know, will reduce your time further. We look at the sky. There is a shower on its way, actually. It might hit us. It might hit us. Just not hit us. So this is adding the last spice to the whole thing. But it is quite stressy because you know you have to do your homework basically in 1 hour, and if you have a reliability glitch or anything, you lose even that time, and you go into the sprint qualifying with a bit of unknowns. We have seen some cars getting disqualified with skid wear, with weight, and all these kind of things. So I think it's something that you have to really, you know, approach in a conservative way. But on the other hand, we have the change this year that we can change the car before the main qualifying, which was different before. So I think, you know, the stress is still there, but it is maybe a bit less than it used to be before.
I find it quite interesting that Aston Martin has opted for a slightly lower downforce setup than they used previously in the season, particularly with the high average speeds of Jeddah just the previous race. But they've decided to opt for this setup, I guess, to try and extract a bit more from the car. Something else that's new in both Aston Martins, and in fact all of the Mercedes-powered cars this weekend, is the power unit. Mercedes has introduced a new power unit for all of the cars that use their product. And while it's a new power unit, it is in theory the exact same specification as all of the drivers started the season with. But the regulations do allow a few little modifications to improve reliability or cost or safety. And with those little tweaks, maybe you can get a bit of performance. We don't know. The manufacturers certainly won't tell us what those tweaks are. But could Mercedes have found a little bit of performance from that power unit? We'll have to wait and see. But obviously, new power units next year. It would be a surprise if there was too much effort going into performance development at this point of the 2025 season. But one team that has been doing some performance development and will also have Mercedes power units next year, though not the one in the back of the Aston Martin, obviously, is Alpine, who are abandoning the Renault power unit and adopting Mercedes for 2026. And they have, according to the FIA paperwork, introduced a new brake duct this weekend at the front of their car. But I've got a slight problem with this because I took a close look at this brake duct on the car, and quite frankly, this section of the car looks pretty darn similar to what we've been seeing on these pink cars all season long. We need to get Mike Seymour to find out exactly what's going on. He's down in the pit lane, putting the team on the spot.
We have a new front brake duct. But just to not disappoint you too late, so we're not gonna run it this weekend. I think when we considered everything of the sprint weekend, all the details, we thought, right, let's keep it until the next. But we do have a new front brake duct ready to go. It's always a blend of trying to improve a bit the aerodynamics, look after what we can do better with the brakes, tower heating or cooling, just trying to blend everything in. So we have it. But it's not going to go on the car this weekend.
Sure. And a change to the front suspension as well. What can you tell us about that? Is it linked?
The front suspension is mostly fairings, just going with the front brake duct. It's all interlinked. All the gators are just one big assembly. So again, it's just trying to refine a little bit more the aerodynamics of the car.
Well, that's fascinating stuff there from Alpine, showing you that they really are still pushing the development of this car pretty hard. There's the revised front suspension. You're going to see a few teams changing that, particularly with Monaco coming up. Expect to see an awful lot of changes to the front suspension shrouds as well. Beam wings, Williams there, a new beam wing on the back of that car, reducing drag. Same old story we've heard everywhere else. Again, we've got to do an episode of this just on beam wings. We'll do that later in the year and just really go into detail on that. Sauber, another team with modified front suspension just on the lower parts of the front suspension this weekend as well. And Sauber being one of those teams with a special one-off paint job, just like the pink Racing Bulls, very eye-catching. But they took the snazzy wheel covers off for actually running the car on the track. I thought that was a bit of a shame. But everybody in Miami clearly is having an awful lot of fun, aren't they?
A few more, how thoughtful.
Regulations.
Oh, no, see how, oh, for goodness sakes.